Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, around the Motor City Madmouth. Glad to be joined by George Eichorn back in the Midwest, Motor City. How you doing there, George?
Hey, Scott. Good to be with you. Happy holidays.
Same to you. And Rick, glad to have you back again. You guys are making a great duo, and I know we'll definitely be seeing a lot more of you guys over the course of 2021. So
Yep.
how are your holidays, Rick?
Oh, it's great. I love doing these shows too. Me and George are becoming like Garrick and Ruth. I love it.
Well, you guys are becoming a good team. I make no bones about it. And there'll be lots of opportunities going into 21 to pair you guys up without a doubt. So glad to have you
Thank you.
both on my team. I really am. If my voice isn't so perky tonight, well, it's pretty obvious that the subject matter that we're going to talk about reflects the unfortunate passings of a lot of people this year. So, I'm not going to say this is a completely somber broadcast. It's more of an opportunity to celebrate a lot of the folks that passed away in 2020. And I will tell you right now, 30 days ago on this date, my mom passed away in Birmingham, Michigan. Tomorrow is my birthday. It'll be the first one I don't have her, but we all know that we have to understand that we're here for a visit. So, Mom, I love you up in heaven. Gonna miss you tomorrow, like I always do. But the part of this broadcast we dedicated to you. So, George.
Yeah, thank you. And same to my wishes also to your mom. And of course, my late mother-in-law, Dolores. We lost her in February, actually before COVID broke out. And I know she's looking down on us right now, too. So miss you very much, Dolores, and thinking about you, too, in this year of 2020, which so many great people we've lost. Thanks.
No, you're welcome. Glad to do it. So thankfully, Rick, we don't have to acknowledge anyone on your side at 2020, or at least if there is somebody I don't know about, but at least one out of the three is clean on the personal part anyhow. But what we're going to do tonight, folks, we're going to go over a bunch of people in the sports world that passed away, and I'm going to break them down by sport, and then I'll list the names, and then we'll comment on a few at a time, and we'll go from there. So, I'm wearing this Baseball Hall of Fame shirt, and I can tell you right now that when I ultimately bring Tim Mead on the broadcast, I know that things are going to be a little bit, his attendance will be a little lighter because of some of the ones I'm about to mention. So we're going to lead it off, baseball jargon anyways, with Tom Seaver.
Tom terrific.
Yeah.
What a great guy. Very personable, all-American looks. I mean, he was just like at the top of his game, New York Mets and other teams. But boy, oh boy, Tom Seaver, too young, way too young to pass.
Right.
Yeah, on the Baseball Network over the weekend, they were having a tribute to Tom Seaver. And I was watching his 300th win with the White Sox. And then they had when he pitched his no-hitter with the Reds. And unfortunately, I didn't see Tom Seaver when he was with the Mets. I kind of saw him at the end of his career I remember when he got his 300th win. But one of the greatest pitchers of all time, Tom Terrific. I mean, his name is so popular. I think Tom Brady tried to trademark Tom Terrific, and they said, "Nope, sorry, that's taken by Tom Seaver." So not even Tom Brady can be recognized as Tom Terrific. It's always Tom Terrific will always be Tom Seaver. So he's a legend, and it's unfortunate what happened, and way too young, and but what a career, what a life.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, we know that his Mets work certainly got him where he did, winning the World Series of the Miracle Mets '69. A lot of people have to realize that this guy was successful in multiple stops, albeit he's known for what he did with the New York Mets. So let's go down the baseball list a little bit. Warren, George, and I, and Rick, I know baseball is one of your favorite sports. Al Kaline was definitely a tough loss. I did meet him one time over in spring training. Very nice guy, but everybody in Motown realizes what an icon this guy is.
Another legend, yeah. Youngest man to win the batting title. He was 20 years old. Ty Cobb was the youngest, and I think he beat him by a couple months. 3,000 hits. Legendary, beloved with the Tigers, and another legend, another guy that's will be missed. And unfortunately, I get the opportunity to see him play live, but studying baseball and reading baseball, and I just thought, wow, this guy was one of the best. You know, his numbers, going to the All-Star games, and just beloved by in Detroit. So another legend gone, unfortunately, in 2020.
Yeah, played
Oh,
his entire career in Detroit, and then went on to be a broadcaster. So if there's a guy who's going to actually say that he played in one place his entire career, Al Kaline's it, right, George?
yeah, yeah. And there's only about 45,000 people that can say they were there on Al Kaline Day. I'll never forget when he and his wife Louise, in an open convertible along the warning track, very slow ride. He was honored in 1970, and that day was a big day. That was a very special day. American League President Joe Cronin was on hand, Governor Milliken, Mayor Gribbs, and they honored Al Kaline, his wife Louise, and that was before he even retired with Al Kaline Day. But just a great gentleman, the heart and soul, just like Ernie Banks is with the Cubbies. Al Kaline what meant that much to the Tigers.
I'm glad that we let off with baseball because the names that have come out of baseball are just unbelievable. I mean, I know it almost borders around, I hate saying depressing, but it really is when you think of the level and the magnitude of these names. So, with that said, they make Fords in Detroit, but in New York, they have a guy by the name of Whitey Ford. So,
Whitey Ford, a great pitcher for the Yankees, Scott and Rick. Just another gentleman of the game who was just beloved by Yankee Kingdom. Rick, again, you and I and Scott were too young to see him pitch, but boy, there's great stories about what he did to help the Yankees produce those world championships left and right.
Yep, yep, total legend. Yankees, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. Unfortunately, I get the opportunity to see him. But when I was growing up, reading about baseball, it's like reading about L.K. Line and seeing what Tom Seaver was in his prime, and you see how they were in their prime, and their numbers were phenomenal and fantastic, and legends. There always will be legends. He was with the Yankees, and so one of the greats. So it's
Yeah.
unfortunately another legend that passed away for 2020.
yeah, there are more Yankees on this list that we're going to get to. But yeah, Whitey Ford epitomized what it was like to go ahead and wear the pinstripes for sure. Well, let's go back to that 1968 World Series because Lou Brock and Bob Gibson played on that team, and those two guys, I think I met uh, Lou Brock or Bob Gibson out in Cincinnati a long time ago when I was working with the Reds. But nevertheless, to lose two icons on that team, Lou Brock and Bob Gibson, is just unbelievable.
Like a highlight reel, Scott and Rick. You see that 68 World Series, and we lost Kaline, we lost Lou Brock. The man was a phenomenal runner. Oh my gosh, the stolen bases he recorded. Lou Brock was the engine that sparked that offense for the Cardinals. And then, of course, Bob Gibson, what can you say? Unbelievable statistics, 1968 and his career. Just phenomenal. Those two fellas from St. Louis, and it's still an unbelievable comeback by the Tigers to win that World Series as they were down 3-1 and came back roaring to win it 4-3. But yeah, sad day for Cardinal faithful with Lou Brock and Bob Gibson going just months apart to their deaths.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Brock, one of the greatest stolen base artists of all time. Ricky Henderson broke his record. Bob Gibson, that magical year where he had that minuscule ERA, one of the most feared pitchers. And, St. Louis is a great baseball town, great fans, and man, just more legends have passed away this year that I can remember, and it's just unfortunate. And I didn't get the opportunity to see them play, but of course, reading about them and seeing highlight reels, they were just phenomenal people on and off the field.
Yeah.
Doesn't get any easier than this. Doesn't get any easier because now you can add Joe Morgan and Phil Necro to the list. We're going to do them two at a time. So Phil Necro just died yesterday, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think the Hall of Fame, I saw a statement today issued by the Hall of Fame that they have never before lost this many Hall of Famers in a 12-month period. Like you said, Scott, baseball's been hit really, really hard. And those two guys you just mentioned, Phil Nico, the knuckleballer, and Joe Morgan. Gosh, was he a great guy. Not only a great ball player for Sparky Anderson and the Big Red Machine, but just a gentleman. As you know, guys, he covered Major League Baseball and John Miller and Joe Morgan. I love that broadcast team. Those two guys, just it breaks my heart to see these guys go. And I agree with you. Baseball has been hit hard.
Yep, just legends. The Negro brothers, knuckleball pitchers, both in the Hall of Fame, and you know, I used to watch baseball, Sunday Night Baseball with him and John Miller, and I just remember his infectious laugh. And honestly, it's not the same without them. I used to watch it all the time, Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN, and I just love hearing them. And when they left, I kind of like just haven't watched it as much, and it's not the same. They're just, and I miss Joe Morgan a lot. I didn't see him play as a with the Reds. I remember my brother-in-law saw him play, and he always had a toothpick in his mouth. One time when he batted, he had a toothpick, and so he was part of the Big Red Machine. And but I remember him later on in his life when he became a broadcaster, and he was fantastic. I loved him and miss him to this day. So it's been really rough 2020, especially in baseball. It's hard to believe so many people passed away in 2020.
Yeah, no doubt about. Well, I mean, you're referring to Joe Negro. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame, but he was a heck of a pitcher for a long time and relied on the knuckleball for sure. I think ESPN has made a lot of mistakes over the last few years, letting some great talent get away. When you let John Miller and Joe Morgan get away, that to me is just bad. It really is. I mean, who have they had legitimately to replace those two Hall of Famers?
No,
And you wonder
no.
why the ratings are taking a dive on Sunday Night Baseball. Why don't you just think about the talent you have on the air and how it can relate to generations? Look yourself in the mirror, ESPN, and realize you had two icons. You should have gone out of your way to make it interesting. If icons like that die, while they're during the year, I get it, but let them go as long as you can. We dealt with that at Ernie Harwell, George, that Ernie should have stayed there as long as he could. And those interruptions to me are just poor. We'll continue the tour down memory lane with some of these other ones. We got Dick Allen and Jimmy Wynn, the toy cannon. Jimmy Wynn, recognizable for the Houston Astros, and Dick Allen was a heck of a player. I believe for the Phillies and the White Sox, right?
Yes, exactly. And for a long time, they called him Richie Allen. But then he said, call me Dick, don't call me Richie Allen. But controversial player. He broke through barriers, the color barrier. Dick Allen, I know he could be testy at times, but boy, oh boy, what a big stick he swung. Dick Allen. And of course, Jimmy Wynn, another great hitter from the Houston Astros.
Yeah, totally two legends, and Dick Allen, yeah, is known for his strong personality and, and he played in an era where, yeah, he did break the color, where it was very rare to see African Americans in baseball. And he came in there, he didn't open the door and walk in, he like literally like kicked the door in and here I am. And if you don't like me, too bad, get used to it. So, he just a strong personality, both great hitters. And, again, just 2020 has just been hit hard. It's just I don't remember all these deaths in baseball in one year at all. I remember usually a couple big names, but you look down, it's like, wow, it's just a laundry list of Hall of Famers that have passed away or should be Hall of Famers.
Well, that laundry list is going to get a little deeper because when I throw Matt Kehoe and Bob Watson out there, Matt Kehoe was a key pitcher on Billy Martin's staff when he was at the Oakland A's, when Billy Martin would get his pitchers to go 8-9 innings a pop. And we all know about Bob Watson, who scored the millionth run, but also had a great career in administration, not only with the Astros, but Major League Baseball. He also played for the Yankees. So there's a couple more to digest.
Yeah. And again, I agree with Rick. I mean, this list goes on and on. Keogh was a good pitcher. Again, he died too young. Bobby Watson, like you said, good ball player and a good administrator, Scott. And boy, oh boy, I tell you, it's like you said, Rick. I mean, it's just unbelievable the way baseball's been hit this year with all these names. Oh my goodness. And the list goes on and on, I'm sure.
Yeah, 2020 has been like a catastrophic year. It's the worst year I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And, with this pandemic going on and, all these deaths going on, and it's just, it goes on and on and on, and just great players, legends, and it's just I know this list gonna get longer, but it's just unfortunate what's been going on.
We're going through some more of them, so we'll go from Bob Watson, Matt Keogh down to Claudell Washington, an intricate part of the Oakland A's, John McNamara, and Jim Fry. So we all know that Fry had a good career with the Kansas City Royals. John McNamara, part of the Cincinnati Reds, and Claudell Washington, mainly known for his contributions with the Oakland A's.
Yeah, Claudette, again, a good ball player, great skills, great runner, you know, a base stealer, and again, these are people that McNamara and Fry, good solid managers, both of them over the years. They both had good teams that they managed, and you know, their losses will be well known.
Yep, I remember Claudell Washington. You know, when I used to grew up in Los Angeles, I used to have Angels baseball, and Joe Torre and Ken Brett, George Brett's brother, would be the announcers, and they would play the Yankees, and I would always see Claudell Washington, and you know, not an exciting player, but he was always an instrumental part of the Yankees, and I remember him and John McNamara when he was the manager for the Red Sox. You know, that '86 World Series, and he was a great manager. He was just a very great manager, and you know, it's heartbreaking what happened to them in '86 when he lost the World Series. But you know, I remember when he beat the Angels, when the Angels were one strike away, and you know, so probably one of the greatest World Series I've ever seen was the '86 Mets Red Sox World Series. Just so many ups and downs, and you know, I just remember the Red Sox that year, and he was a great manager, and I think he also coached the later in his career he managed the Indians. You know, when the Indians were terrible and they played in that gargantuan ballpark where it had 80,000 people. So just more legends have lost. And it's sad because I've seen a lot of these players I've seen in my childhood, and they're just little by little going away. It's sad.
Yeah, well, you talk about that ballpark, by the way, Rick. I've seen some games that are both baseball and football, and I'll never forget the time where a little pebble was the reason why Dave Steve lost his perfect game and no hitter. It was unbelievable.
Municipal Stadium. Yep, I remember it.
Yeah, it was unreal. All right, we'll go on to some other names I'm not quite as familiar with. I don't know if you are, Rick, but we'll cover them nonetheless. Got Gene Budig, Harold Cousins, Rick Reed. Go ahead, George. Why don't you give an education on these guys?
Yeah. You know, Gene Budig, the last American League president, Gene did a terrific job leading the American League, and you know, he had, you know, then they brought the leagues together, and then the presidency just didn't mean it was just an honorary title after that. In fact, Mrs. Autry, I think, was the last American League president of that I know of. The two umpires that died, both American League heritage guys, Darryl Cousins, Rick Reed. Rick was from Michigan here. I'll never forget Rick Reed. They put Steve Javie into the Polish Sports Hall of Fame here in Troy, Michigan, and Rick Reed had to be there because Rick Reed was the godfather of Steve Javie, the NBA official. So when Steve entered the Hall of Fame, Rick and his wife were there, and Joey Crawford came into town, and Bennett Salvatore, and we had a great old time with those guys talking and reminiscing that night. I'll never forget that. Rick was just a gentleman with a great heart, an umpire that if you got to know him, you just really admired. So I personally can say that was a big loss for me and for my broadcast friend, Ron Cameron, who also knew Rick Reed really well.
All right, we'll go on to a few other names here. You've
Sure.
got, so from Rick Reed, Harold Cousins, and Jim Budig, we got Bill Bartholomew, David Glass. What's your recollections of them, George?
Well, Bartholomew, of course, helped build that Atlanta Braves dynasty as their owner. I mean, he did a great job, and Bill was part of that team that saw that tremendous, you know, manager Cox and those Hall of Fame pitchers. And Bartholomew, of course, they won one World Series, but they should have won a lot more down in Atlanta. As we know, it's kind of surprising they only had one World Championship, but Bill was the owner at that time.
And then you also had David Glass on there as well.
David Glass, yeah, former major league player. He had a decent career. Another one, too, I know on your list is Hank Steinbrenner, of course,
Right.
Hank Stein, or George's son. And you know, Scott, you've covered the Yankees and spring training and all that. So Hank Steinbrenner was not that old, and he lost his life to I don't know if it was cancer he had, but I know he had terminal illness. Hank Steinbrenner was also on your list, I know.
Yeah, when George Steinbrenner passed away, Hank Steinbrenner, talked a great deal before he yielded the spotlight to his other brother, Hank Steinbrenner. And we had Hank Steinbrenner, and I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, the other brother.
Hal Steinbrenner. And Hal
Yeah,
Steinbrenner did a good job.
right. Yeah.
So, all right, Rick, comment about Hank Steinbrenner.
Well, his brother and his father, of course, George Steinbrenner, and he took over, and legendary Yankees, and like I said, it's just unfortunate what happens to he did die of an illness. I think it was cancer, I believe, and you know just gone too soon. It's unfortunate, but legendary Yankees, and took over for his father. So like I said, the list just goes on and on.
Yeah, we'll mention a few more here. Tony Taylor, obviously, of the Tigers and the Philadelphia Phillies. Good complimentary second baseman. Ron Peronowski, George, some insights on those two guys.
Tony the Tiger, I called him. The Tigers got Tony Taylor, much like they got Carlos Guillen and other guys, the second part of their career. And Tony was just a spark plug. I mean, he was really a good guy to have around the front of the locker room. I mean, and Tony Taylor was really good. He helped plug that second hole position for Detroit really well. Ron Peronowski, again, a good Polish guy. He's a member of the Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. Ron was a great pitcher. Los Angeles Dodgers, good relief pitcher. They could count on him. Walter Alston was not afraid to call, send out to the bullpen to get Ron Peronowski, trust me, to save a lot of those Dodger victories.
We'll go on to some more names here. You got Bob Miller, Glenn Beckert, Bobby Winkles. All right, George. A lot of
Bob Miller, a lot of people don't know Bob Miller, Rick and Scott, but Bob Miller was the head coach for years and years and years of baseball at the University of Detroit. Bob Miller was a whiz kid back in the 50s. They called them the whiz kids with the Philadelphia Phillies. And this man lived into his 90s and just died this past couple months ago. Bob Miller, great guy. Glenn Beckert, oh my gosh, what a great second baseman for the Chicago Cubs. Ron Santo and Glenn Beckert, just a terrific combination there. Bobby Winkles, again, a good coach, coached a lot in college baseball, and then became an a coach for the California Angels, or whatever they were called back there, Anaheim Angels, California Angels. Bobby Winkles, great career as a coach. And again, like you said before, Scott and Rick, we've just lost so many good guys.
Well, I believe Winkles went on to manage that team for a period of time too.
Yeah, Scott, you're right.
Serves me correctly. All right, we, believe it or not, of this, we only have three more baseball guys, and I'm sure Rick Curti is probably glad we only have three left. So we're going to go Jay Johnstone, Tony Fernandez, and Walt Owens.
Yeah.
I remember Tony Fernandez, one of the great second baseman. Was with the Blue Jays and the Padres. Remember, he had that really unique batting stance, or like the Rod Carew batting stance. Great switch hitter, great fielder. Just a really great underrated player. And it's just, when I heard he died, I'm like, Tony Fernandez, these are people I grew up watching. I used to watch him when he was with the Blue Jays and the Padres, and it's just it's so sad. And Ron Peronowski as well. I remember he was a pitching coach for the Dodgers, when I was growing up in Los Angeles, and in the late 80s, and he was their pitching coach. And it's sad to see a lot of these people in my childhood, and I don't think I'm that old to see that they passed away. So it's just so sad.
Yeah, then the last one on the list is Walt Owens, George.
Yeah, Walt Owens, again, this is a personal favorite of mine. He was the baseball coach at Denby High School, where I graduated from. But what I did not know about Walt Owens was he was in the Negro League. and he was not as famous, obviously, as Satchel Paige, but Walt Owens was in the Negro League. And then after he left Denby High School, became the head coach, very successful for a long, long time at Northern Michigan. I'm sorry, Northern Illinois, the college at Northern Illinois, it's called. But Walt Owens, again, a member of the Negro League.
Okay. All right, let's go on to a different sport. I'm sure Rick is glad to get off of this one. But we're going to talk about one George and I are all too familiar with, hockey. Tom Webster, I remember seeing him with the Red Wings. Those were back in the days when that team was considered the Dead Wings. And Eddie Johnson. Tommy was a pretty good player. He really was a good player. And Eddie Johnson.
Scott, Tommy Webster, with Detroit and then New England, I mean, he had a lot of tools. Tommy Webster did, and he had some tough years there with injuries and stuff, but Eddie Johnson, another steady player, more older than Tommy Webster, but these guys are guys that really we grew up watching, like you said, especially.
Okay, now one that really is interesting, although he did live one good life, is Howie Meeker. Now I know, Rick, you're probably out. Don't worry about commenting on this one. You weren't on you weren't near our country, Canada. Well, our neighborhood country, Canada, yes. So let's talk about Howie Meeker.
I'm telling you, Scott, you and I, Scott, knowing we're border city guys here from Motor City. Oh my gosh, Howie Meeker, Hockey Night in Canada, just like Brian McFarlane and Bill Hewitt, Foster Hewitt, Danny Galvin, Dick Hodge, Dave Hodge, Dick Irvin. But Howie Meeker, talk about a guy, Don Cherry. Howie Meeker, oh my God, he got that squeaky voice. You remember he had that squeaky voice, but boy, he knew his hockey. Howie Meeker, like you said, Scott, lived a long, full life, well into his 90s. God bless him, but boy, he was a great color analyst. I agree, describing Hockey Night in Canada.
Yeah, if there's ever a guy that you savor, it's Howie Meeker. But I got to tell you, I did meet Dave Hodge many years ago out in Vancouver, Canada, for Hockey Night in Canada. And I remember, I believe I saw the Vancouver Canucks and the Edmonton Oilers there. It was pretty neat. So, gotta love my secondary country, Canada. Yes. Okay, I had to get that one in while my wife was looking at me like I'm nuts. All right. So now here's a name we're really familiar with. George, how about Brian Glenn? Everybody will tell you right now that Dan Maloney gave him a headache. Tylenol wasn't going to get rid of.
Oh my God.
Maple Leafs and Dan Maloney with the Red Wings. So
yeah,
it's a pretty interesting situation how Dan Maloney roughed up Brian Glenn.
Yeah, it was a big fight and very headline grabbing, controversial hit. Brian Glennie, I tell you what, he was a guy who wouldn't back down. I mean, he talk about tough guys in the league. I mean, Brian Glennie, I mean, he wasn't going to be your 30 goal scorer kind of guy, but boy, he was nitty gritty and he played the game with a lot of feistiness. And that's a big, huge moment in his career, kind of a definer, like you said, with Maloney.
Yeah, Dan Maloney, Rick, I'm going to tell you, he roughed a lot of people up. And I'm telling you, to sit here and tell you, you're a big boxing guy, Rick. Dan Maloney was as good as it gets. And he knew when to pick his fights. And when he picked them, he won, I'd say, the vast majority of them. Now let's go on to another hockey icon, Andre Richard. George, let everybody know about Andre Richard. So we hope he lets it. Anyways, Andre Richard, a star player for the Montreal Canadiens, and I had a chance to watch him quite a bit. And you want to talk about how nice it was to have Hockey Night in Canada right by. So you had the Red Wings, the Maple Leafs. Let me tell you, Andre Richard is as good as it gets. You got Pat Stapleton, Eddie Shack, Dale Howard, Chuck Pierre LaCroix, Colby gave. Any of these ring a bell to you, Rick?
Some of them do. I really wasn't into watching hockey. I think I remember LaCroix, so I vaguely remember him, but other ones I'm not really too familiar with.
Yeah, well, I want to go ahead and talk about the career of Henri Richard, because this guy here, he had Henri Richard and then Maurice Richard, two of the biggest dynamic hockey brothers out there. And I'm going to tell you, these guys were certainly icons for sure. We'll hopefully we'll get George Eichorn back in a moment, and we'll give his opinions. But we'll go on to basketball. We'll talk about Kobe
Okay.
Bryant and David Stern.
Yeah, Kobe, I remember when that happened. I mean, it was before COVID came. I just remember seeing a thing on on Facebook, and I just thought it's got to be a hoax. I'm like, Kobe Bryant, come on.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I kept seeing it, New York Times, and I told my mom, hear about Kobe Bryant? They said he died in a plane crash, and it was all over. And my brother lives in Los Angeles, huge Laker fan. And he said it was just people were in shock, mourning. So sad to see him go. He died so young. His daughter died. 9 other people died as well, and it's just sad to go. And David Stern, one of the most controversial commissioners ever. I mean, he was not afraid to speak his mind. I remember when I lived in Las Vegas, and they'd ask him, hey, do you ever think about getting the NBA team in Las Vegas? And he said, Las Vegas will never get an NBA team over my dead body. I remember him saying that one time. So he was just been there a long, long time, legendary commissioner, and it's just another legend. A legend in sports, but just a very dynamic, very just a great commissioner. Whether you liked him or not, he spoke his mind and didn't really. He never apologized.
Well, I think of all the commissioners that I've ever seen, David Stern is by far and away number one. He rescued the NBA from financial issues there. He really did. And when you talk about the mega contracts that he ended up negotiating, I think the problem I have with the NBA is I don't think the players of today appreciate everything that was done before them. I think that when you measure David Stern and his legacy, load management wasn't something he spoke too kindly of. If you missed a nationally televised game, then you missed it. And I'm going to tell you right now, Adam Silver to me is doing a decent job, but to me, I think that David Stern, the NBA misses him quite a bit. Kobe Bryant, I remember when I heard this news on social media, I said, what? Really?
Yeah, the same way.
Again, another classic situation where he played at one organization for his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
I know he snuffed the Charlotte Hornets at the time.
Yeah, we could have been for the Hornets. Yep.
Right. Can you imagine how that would have played out?
Yeah, I remember Jerry West got him. I remember Jerry West was against high school players going to the NBA, and here he traded a high school player to go to the NBA. I remember that happening. But yeah, and my mom goes, he was with the Hornets. I go, he got drafted by them, but that night he got traded to the Lakers. But he was originally drafted by the Hornets. What could have been? What could history? He went with the Lakers, won 5 championships, and here the Hornets can't even barely make the playoffs. So what could have been, but it is what it is. Great career, great person, just one of the greatest basketball players that ever lived. And I agree with you with David Stern. He was stern. Now, Adam Silver, I like Adam Silver, but it's obviously the players run the league. If David Stern was alive, what James Harden's doing, he would have just done away with it. He would have suspended him. He'd have called him in his office and told him to knock this garbage off, stop being an idiot. And that's what I don't like about basketball. It's now the players run the league now. It's more like LeBron is like to me, the commissioner and does whatever he wants to do. And you have all these prima donnas now. When David Stern was there, no way you would never see that. You would never see Jordan acting like that, or Patrick Ewing, or Larry Bird, or Magic Johnson. They weren't. He made sure, no, you're not going to be like that. And that's what I miss about basketball. It was he, like I said, his name was perfect. He was stern when he was the commissioner.
Oh, there's no question. A lot of the stuff that's taking place in the NBA would never be tolerated under David Stern.
Yep.
You know what? And I think part of the problem with the league is going to have is the more you see these lopsided games where you have the really have and have nots, then you really do have a little bit of a problem there. So, but yeah, I think Davis Turner was great. Kobe Bryant, what can you say? Sad, way sad. It just tells you how
Young.
life really is.
Yep. Young.
We'll continue the. I will go back to a hockey reference real quick. Eddie Shack was considered the entertainer, and he played a lot of his career for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And back then, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, when you only had 6 teams, Eddie Shack was the guy that stood out. And I believe Pat Stapleton was the broadcaster for the Chicago Blackhawks, or I think he was the defenseman. But I know there's a Stapleton out that's synonymous with the Blackhawks. We'll continue back on basketball. You've got Curly Neal of the Harlem Globetrotters. What can you say about him?
Legendary guy, one of the when I was growing up, I remember him very, very well. I remember we used to go to the Forum, and I remember my dad taking me to see the Harlem Globetrotters, and they always played the team called the Warriors, and my dad always said, don't ever boo them. It's just, it's not real. It's like, kind of like wrestling. It's just a show.
Right.
And they were amazing, the Globetrotters, what they did. They were like magicians with a ball. It's just amazing what they did. And I remember him, Meadowlark Lemon, those were the two famous ones in my era of the Harlem Globetrotters. And it's an amazing story with the owner. What he did was, I think they were like from the streets of Harlem, formed the basketball team, and he traveled all around the world. And just, a legendary basketball player, entertainer, and it's just sad. Like I said, I remember a lot of these players, seeing them a lot, and it's so sad that a lot of them have passed.
Yeah, let's continue through the list. We talked about Curly Neal. And when you talk about basketball, I know George wrote Mike Storn. I don't know a whole lot about him, but somebody that meant a little bit to him. But we'll talk about Jerry Sloan. Everybody knows what he did with the Chicago Bulls as a player, and then he actually coached them, and then proceeded to go to Utah. And he's legendary out in Utah for sure.
Yeah, I remember him very well with the Utah Jazz. Took him to the finals. Fortunately, Michael Jordan got in the way, and very underrated coach. He just, was there for a long time, and it's sad. I think he passed away of Alzheimer's, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I've had family members, and no family members have died of it. It's just a horrible, horrible disease, and it's just, but he was I just remember him as a coach, and he was just a great coach, an underrated coach with the Jazz. And it's just, he should have won a championship. He really did, like Karl Malone and John Stockton. They deserved to win it, have gotten a championship. They came so close, but those Michael Jordan Bulls, got in the way, but a really great coach.
There's nothing wrong with being a runner-up to Michael Jordan's Bulls, just so you know.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we'll continue the NBA thing. Wes Unseld, a part of the Washington, at that time they were considered the Bullets, but the Wizards' first championship he paired with Elvin Hayes. That team, what a team that they really were. Dick Mott, I believe, was your head coach back then, and that was a fine team in Washington.
Yeah, I remember Wes Unseld, great player. I remember when they were the Bullets, and then they changed it because it was like, I think they were doing like an anti-violence campaign, and they just said, yeah, let's get rid of that name, and they became the Wizards. But yeah, I remember him. When I used to watch Laker basketball, and they'd go down to Washington, he'd be the coach, and so it's just sad to see a lot of these coaches, even though some of them I'm not familiar with, I do remember them, and it's just sad that they passed away. But they were just great players, and when they're in their prime, they were like one of the best players. So it's just unfortunate.
All right, we got George Eichorn back on the broadcast. George, thank you for coming back. We're going to give you an opportunity to go over your hockey once, and then we'll give you a say in the basketball that we covered. You got Pat Stapleton, Eddie Shack, Dale Howard, Chuck Pierre, LaCroix, Colby Cave. Go ahead and give us your insights on these guys.
Well, Pat Stapleton, I loved him. Boy, what a tough son of a gun. The Detroit Red Wings, of course, were fierce rivals with the Chicago Blackhawks. And boy, Stapleton was right there, toe for toe, matching up with the Red Wings and really getting under the Red Wings' skin most of the time. what a great, great guy Stapleton was for the Blackhawks. And then he went into coaching and stuff like that. Again, another shocker for me. I mean, he just seems way too young to pass away. And I'm sorry to hear about that. But the other ones that you mentioned, of course, they've all been really good players in the league. Eddie Shack, you talk about a stink stirrer upper, as they say. Another word is used for stink. Eddie Shack, he was just so colorful. What a colorful hockey player, mostly for the Boston Bruins. Dale Haverchuk, what a great career he had, obviously. Um, and these guys, again, not as many. We weren't hit as hard with hockey as we were with baseball, of course, and I know there's a lot of other hockey players, I'm sure, that are on the list. The one young man, Colby Cave, so disastrous, obviously, to lose him in his early 20s. He just got married, and he and his wife were so happy together. And then, of course, he died. It was just so sad, from the Edmonton Oilers this past year. Colby Cave. Pierre Lacroix, again, a guy that the Red Wings did not like because he helped build those Colorado Avalanche teams as an executive with the Avalanche. Pierre Lacroix, and all good guys. We lost a lot in hockey.
Well, why don't you comment on Henri Richard?
Henri Richard, yeah, I'm sorry about that, Scott and Rick. Henri Richard, a Montreal Canadian, the brother of Maurice, the Rocket Richard. Henri Richard, sometimes he get as much credit as his brother did. Of course, his brother had all those scoring records playing against guys like Gordie Howe. But boy, Henri Richard, he was the pocket rocket, they called him. He was a good player. Went on to have a fabulous career with the Montreal Canadiens, got into coaching. And another one, Scott, like we talked about earlier, Hockey Night in Canada, boy, you'd see those Richard brothers play or coach. And in the case of Henri Richard, again, just a great French Canadian hockey player, just terrific Hall of Famer, Henri Richard.
All right, now we'll dive into basketball. Kobe Bryant, David Stern, go ahead.
Oh, Rick, what do you think? I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that, does it? David Stern,
Yeah.
mold of the NBA and the superstars that played for him, under him, if you will, whatever. But obviously, there's no words can describe the loss of those two giants. Kobe Bryant, what a great, fabulous career, and of course, David Stern.
Yeah, and like I was telling Scott, and I remember David Stern, just his name fits it all. He was stern, spoke his mind. I think the problem with the NBA now, the players run the league. If David Stern was the commissioner, James Harden would not be. He wouldn't tolerate it. He would just suspend them. I don't care who you are. LeBron. It's just too much drama, too much divas. And I love Adam Silver, but it's just it's out of control right now. And just these big personalities. And I mean, if David Stern was a commissioner, James Harden, he would be like gone. He would be like, I don't care who you are, you're out of here.
Yeah.
You're a clown. And that's what I liked about him. Kept all these huge personalities in check, like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Patrick Ewing. I mean, he's made basketball what it is, a $1 billion business. And of course, Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest basketball players, complete shock. I remember that was just the complete shock. It was shortly before COVID came, and when this happened, and I thought it was a hoax. And I just, all these people were commenting, and it was, when I saw it on the New York Times and LA Times that he died, it was like, oh my gosh, 41 years old. His daughter died as well. She was 12. Then the other people that died on there as well. He was a baseball coach, and our whole family. He lost his mom, he lost his dad, and he lost his sister. It's just awful. It's just a tragedy what happened there, and it's still a stunner. It's hard to believe Kobe Bryant's not with us anymore.
Yeah, the only time I ever saw Curly Neal, the Globetrotters play, George, was actually at Olympia Stadium on my birthday, and it was a pleasure to go to Globetrotters games.
And Scott, I have to tell you that I also saw him play. I don't know if it was at Olympia or at Cobo Arena, but yeah, what a great Harlem Globetrotter, Curly Neal. Another one we lost, Mike Storin. Mike Storin created and was the first commissioner of the American Basketball Association, the ABA. I know you got a lot more to go, but basketball was hit really, really hard this year too.
Yeah, we'll continue on since we do have a lot more to go. Wes Unseld, Jerry Sloan.
Unbelievable. Both of them great coaches, both great players. Wes Unseld with those Washington Bullet teams, Jerry Sloan, of course, Utah Jazz, and of course in his career, what a great player for the Chicago Bulls. Two legends. These guys stood head and shoulders above so many other coaches and players. And Rick, I know that, they played probably before your time, but they became great coaches after they hung up the cleats.
Yeah, I remember Wes Unseld when he coached with the
Yeah.
with the Washington Bullets. At the time, they were called the Washington Bullets.
Yep.
But I know he was a great basketball player in his time. I remember Jerry Sloan. I remember him as a coach of the Utah Jazz, and I'm like, what? To me, an underrated coach. And it was just a great coach. Went to 2 finals. Unfortunately, stopped by Michael Jordan, those pesky Bulls. But it's just great coach. And I was always like, man, I wish he had won just one championship, especially with Karl Malone and John Stockton. Came very, very close, but he had a great career as a coach, and I remember those two as coaches. So it's just like I said, it's a lot of people I saw in my childhood, and it's just so sad that they have passed away.
Well, Jerry Sloan, as I mentioned to Rick George, very intricate part of that Chicago Bulls team, went on to coach the team. And if there was anybody that knew what the word defense was, Jerry Sloan definitely.
Oh, yeah.
He was
Tremendous.
a nose ball player, and then he took what he learned in Chicago and became an icon out in Utah and did a marvelous job for the Jazz. So, all right, we'll go down the list a little bit more. We got Eddie Sutton and Lute Olson. I did meet Lute Olson one time many years ago at University of Arizona. I didn't really talk to him a lot, but we know that he won a championship with Arizona, and of course he coached in the Big Ten. And we also know about Eddie Sutton. Did some good things at Kentucky before a scandal forced him out of there. But nevertheless, they're in the College Basketball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we've lost some great coaches in college basketball this year, and there's another big name that's going to come up next, I believe, for discussion. But boy, Eddie Sutton and Lute Olson were two of the finest coaches in college basketball for a long, long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Lute Olson with their coach Arizona, great coach, legendary coach. I remember Eddie Sutton as well, and 2 iconic coaches, both in the Hall of Fame. And it's hard to believe. Not only do we lose a lot of players in basketball and baseball and basketball, but also in college. How many of these legendary coaches we've lost? It's sad. But those 2 I remember very, very well, and both great legendary coaches.
Yeah, Lute Olson used to give me fits every time I picked him in the NCAA tournament bracket. Notorious for some of his early exits. And the one time I don't pick him, he wins the whole darn thing. So,
Yeah.
rest in peace, even though my brackets did anything but. All right, so, well, I'll tell you a guy that I saw in the 1982 Final Four, John Thompson of Georgetown. And we all know that John Thompson is the father of that Georgetown program. I remember seeing Patrick Ewing play for him, but John Thompson also had a good career with the Boston Celtics as well.
John Thompson, what a great man. What a big stature man. He reminded me of a giant teddy bear, but boy, he was tough as nails. John Thompson, what a great coach. And he became a very good analyst too. He worked a lot of games as an color analyst. He did a lot of radio. John Thompson did on Westwood One, calling NCAA games. But yeah, I just remember him as being a great coach. And that Georgetown, of course, that was unbelievable. That team his team carried all the way to the championship.
Yeah, lots of good players between Eric Sleepy Floyd, Allen Iverson, Patrick Ewing, and the list goes on. Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I remember John Thompson very well. Alonzo Mourning as well, another great Georgetown Hoya. I remember he's always had that white towel around, on his shoulder, and he was just menacing, big guy. And I was like, man, I hate to get him mad if I was a player, intimidating, but just another legendary, great coach. And, great rivalry with him and Jim Boeheim, and just a legendary coach.
Yep. All right, well, we'll stay with the Celtics situation while we're on it. You've got Casey Jones and Tommy Heinsohn. Everybody has to understand what Casey Jones means to basketball. and Tommy Heinsohn, a heck of a coach for the Celtics, but I couldn't stomach his biased demeanor, on national TV. I don't care, Tommy, what you do when you're talking about the Celtics, but the way he acted on national TV, rest in peace, Tommy, but you were forgettable on the national television. I mean, very forgettable.
Yeah, well, you're entitled to your opinion, Scott. So that's fine. But Casey Jones, I got to tell you a little story here. When I was producer for the Ron Cameron Sports Talk show, we tried to get KC on the air, and we tried to get KC to see if he'd be interested in the Detroit Pistons coaching vacancy. Scotty Robertson just wasn't seeing it. And before Jack McCloskey hired Chuck Daly, Cameron and I were kind of campaigning for him to at least, give Casey Jones a look to come into Detroit and coach the Pistons. It never happened, unfortunately. And the rest is history. Chuck Daly went on to be a fantastic coach for the Pistons. But Casey Jones, unbelievable career. I think he retired at age 34, won 8 or 9 championships with the Boston Celtics. Sam Jones was one of his teammates. And of course, he played with the great Bob Cousy, and Tommy Heinsohn was on that team. But just Celtic Nation has taken a real hit with the loss of Tommy Heinsohn and Casey Jones in 2020. Really tough year for Boston Celtic fans. Right, Rick?
Yeah, I remember Casey Jones, and when he was coaching the legendary Celtics, Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Danny Ainge, and in the 80s, that great rivalry with the Lakers with Pat Riley. And I remember when they would come to the LA, and we hated the Celtics. We hated Kevin McHale, we respected them, but we just hated them because it was such a heated rivalry. But just a great coach. And yeah, he won a ton of championships with that Celtics team with Bill Russell, and just a great player, a great coach. And I heard he passed away. I'm like, God, another person in my childhood that I remember, and just another legendary coach. And I remember Tommy Heinsohn. Yeah, he was kind of a controversial commentator, an announcer, but another outstanding career, legendary career. And it's just so sad to see those two passed away.
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to Heinsohn, as I said, I don't like homers on national TV. I'm not going to say that his coaching ability, I have no problem with it. He was a great basketball person and knew what he ended up doing. And, I respected his record speaks for itself. How do I debate that? But when you're trying to teach the game of basketball or educate your viewers, I actually think he didn't get it done for me. And back in the day when basketball was good and teams hated each other, that's when it was watchable. Okay. Now we have patty cake, baker's man, or everybody go out there and go out to dinner after the game is over. And that's what to me has turned me off about the NBA. All right, George, we have some local people that I know we'll mention. But before we get to those local people, let's talk about Billy Tubbs. You talk about a coach there that made his name at the University of Oklahoma with that high up-tempo style. Billy was a heck of a coach.
Yeah, he sure was. I mean, Billy Tubbs, a very successful coach, another legend that we lost in 2020. And like you mentioned, Scott, he had some great teams. Rick, I remember some of those teams in the NCAA playoffs, the tournament. And Billy Tubbs just had a fantastic coaching career, didn't he?
Yep, another great coach, and like I said, we lost so many this year, and yep, just the list goes on and on and on. It's just amazing, all these legendary Hall of Fame coaches that we lost with Casey Jones, Lute Olson. I remember, I forgot about Lute Olson, and like I said, it's been a long 2020. It seems like it's been on for 5 years. It seems like it's just it's been horrific, and all these names that have passed away. I do not even remember so many legendary coaches, players that have passed away in every sport, hockey, basketball, baseball. There's another hockey player. I don't know if anyone remembers Travis Roy. He was the young man that was paralyzed. He passed away this year as well. I think he recently passed away. I remember him very well. He was like one of these great, I think it was with Boston College, I think.
Boston University, actually.
Yeah. And I remember when he played and he hit his head and he ended up paralyzed, and, he was going to be this great, hockey prodigy, and he unfortunately ended up paralyzed, but he did so much great work, with paralysis and things like that. He just passed. I think he passed away, I think like a month ago, maybe. And I just remember his story very well, and did a lot of great things with his life, and he died very young, but it's just sad that never had the opportunity. What could have been? He could have been another Wayne Gretzky. We'll never know, but he also passed away this year as well.
Well, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, Travis Roy was definitely, I remember the story all too well. And once again, another life that went way too soon because of an unfortunate injury. All right, and we'll continue to stay on basketball a little bit. I'm glad you brought Travis Roy in. Thank you, Rick. This broadcast is all about honoring these great players and people that either they lived a long time or didn't quite live a. That's just a story of life. But we'll stay to some Metro Detroit ones that George wants to talk about. Dave Smokey Gaines, Clifford Robinson, Terry Durod, and Nancy Darsh. George, why don't you give an overview on each and every one of those individuals?
Well, Smokey Gaines, of course, had big shoes to fill. He succeeded Dick Vitale as the University of Detroit coach, and Smokey did a terrific job. He wasn't there more than a few years, but he got them to the NCAA tournament, just like Dick Vitale had gotten U of D, University of Detroit, to the NCAA tournament. And one of those players was Terry Durod. Terry Durod played for Dick Vitale and Smokey Gaines and became a very successful NBA player as well. And Terry Durod, I remember the announcer by the name of Tom Ryan in Detroit, the PA announcer for the University of Detroit, Terry Durod. He loved to do that. Clifford Robinson, of course, many teams he played for in the NBA. I remember big guy, good rebounder, good defensive player. I don't know much about Nancy. I put her on the list because Nancy, of course, was a WNBA player, but she was a very successful coach too in women's college basketball. She's not connected to Detroit at all, but those four people, Clifford Robinson, again, Terry Durod, Smokey Gaines, and Nancy, we remember them too this year.
Yeah, I remember Clifford Robinson played for the Phoenix Suns, what he did, and then he ended up going to the Pistons. As for Terry Durod, he picked up a championship ring with the Boston Celtics. So, at least he didn't go ringless, so more power to him. So, all right, let's continue on to football. If you thought these other lists are interesting, we're definitely going to have an interesting list here. Everybody in the Midwest or the Hall of Fame knows Gale Sayers is as big as they get, because for not only what he did on the field, but that incredible movie with Brian Piccolo. I don't know, Gale Sayers is a big part of that Chicago Bears team back in the day.
Yeah, Gale Sayers, again, just like Ernie Banks was Mr. Cub, Gale Sayers was Mr. Chicago Bears. Of course, Ernie Nevers and George Halas and others were great players for Chicago, or coaches, owners. But Gale Sayers, tremendous. Yeah, he befriended Brian Piccolo. Brian Piccolo died of cancer. The wonderful movie they made called Brian's Song. First, it was made on ABC as a movie of the week. I like that version better, with James Caan acting the role of Brian Piccolo. But then they made it into a full-length movie too. Hollywood did. But Gale Sayers, tremendous running back. Rick, he was a great running back.
Yep. He had a very short career, but he still got in the Hall of Fame. That's how great he was, and he probably would have been greater if it wasn't for the injuries, but he was great. And I remember when he passed, I remember my mom texted me. She doesn't know nothing about sports, but she remembers Brian's song. He goes, that Gale Sayers passed away. And I said, yeah, I heard. And, he befriended Brian Piccolo, who died of lung cancer at age 23. James Caan played. I like the old version. I like the classic version. Sad, and just legendary Bears player, Hall of Famer, short career, but a spectacular short career. And he was just dynamic. Unfortunately, a little before my time, but of course, we got ESPN and internet to see all his games, and he was just phenomenal.
Well, it makes you wonder with modern medicine how much longer Gale Sayers' career could be and how many more records he would have. But nevertheless, back at the time he didn't have it. But yeah, Gale Sayers, George and I can certainly identify with it because we saw him twice a year against the Detroit Lions. Wooly Wood, former Green Bay Packer. My goodness.
Yeah, Hall of Famer Willie Wood, terrific player. Many of those guys that played under Vince Lombardi, of course, went into the Hall of Fame. And I tell you what, Willie Wood is as good as they come. And what a great defender.
Yeah. All right. Tom Dempsey is a guy we know all too well, right,
Oh,
George?
Tom Dempsey. Oh my gosh, a 63-yard field goal, wasn't it, Scott? The New Orleans Saints playing at Old Tulane Stadium
Oh, yeah.
defeated our Detroit Lions. And, his foot, he had half a foot. He had like a kicking shoe special shoe that they let him wear. And he kicks the 63-yard field goal. I'll never forget Don Criqui was the announcer on that game. He goes, I don't believe it. He goes, I don't believe it. A 63-yard field goal. I don't believe it. Don't believe what I saw. Sort of like what Buck said, in the World Series, but not quite. But Don Criqui called that game, and I'll never forget that. The Lions were just devastated to see this guy come out there and kick a 63-yard field goal to win the game. Tom Dempsey, great kicking career with the New Orleans Saints.
We had another infamous moment in Lions history over at Lane Stadium. Don't want to get into a long, elaborate conversation, but Tom Dempsey, when he nailed it with that square foot, I'm not surprised that Tom Dempsey could kick over an arena football league with that thing being so narrow and square.
Yeah.
Anything about Tom Dempsey?
Yeah, I remember that field goal, all over. It was one of those, like, he's going to kick a what? A 60 what? And he had like a half a foot. I remember reading about it and like, I mean, he didn't even have a full foot and he still kicked it. And it was unfortunately devastating for the Lions. And I don't think I think they're still recovering from it, to be quite honest with you. So, but I remember him. I mean, I didn't see him play, but very infamous, thing at that time. It was a record. And he was a great kicker. And but he'll always be remembered for kicking that 63-yard field goal. That was, there's no way he's going to make it. There's no way. And he did.
Well, for whatever it's worth, and this is about the best timing you can ever get for this, okay? But my birthday being on December 29th, 1962, the last time the Lions won a championship was on December 29th, 1957. I wasn't born. So if anybody ever wants to look at a date connected to something, I can connect my birthday to the last Lions title, and it doesn't look like there's anyone in sight soon. So you talk about timing, that is timing. All right, so let's go on to Pete Dye and Willie Davis, George.
Well, Pete Dye, phenomenal coaching career. I think he had 19 years coaching, a 7-2-1 bowl record. He won 153 games in those 19 years, won 70% of his games. Just a tremendous coach. Auburn, he put Auburn on the map. He was one of those classic coaches like Woody Hayes in Ohio State and Bo Schembechler at Michigan, Pat Dye with Auburn, and Johnny Majors with Texas. I mean, these guys, they made their careers off one school, one university for the most part. And like I said, Pat Dye was a terrific coach at Auburn. I remember those games. A lot of those games, Keith Jackson used to call those games, remember, on ABC, Pat Dye's Auburn Tigers.
Yeah. All right, well, let's continue to go through the list. Talk about Johnny Majors, won a national championship with Pittsburgh Panthers, and then some pretty good success on in Tennessee as well. Talk about a program changer. Johnny Majors is definitely.
Yeah, another one, Scott, just like you mentioned. Yeah, terrific guy, terrific coach, Johnny Majors.
All right, let's continue to accelerate through the list. Jim Kick, Don Shula. I actually met Jim Kick many years ago over at Gansby's sports bar out in Boca Raton. Took a photo with him, and Don Shula I worked with. So, you talk about two guys from the '72 Dolphins. They were as good as it gets. I mean, the Dolphins haven't won a Super Bowl since the early '70s, but Jim Kick, Don Shula, as good as it gets. Rick, do you have any recollections of either of those two?
Of course, I remember Don Shula very, very well. With a little before my time when he was with the Colts, but I remember when he was with Miami with Dan Marino, and just a great coach, legendary coach. Just one of the greatest coaches of all time, and it just, when I heard about his passing, I was just like, wow, another legendary Hall of Fame player or coach, manager passes away in 2020. It's just unbelievable. So I remember Don Shula very, very, very well. And he was one of the best, one of the greatest. And never met the man, unfortunately, but I heard a lot of nice things about him. That he was just a great guy off the field as well.
He's intimidating, I can tell you that. And the irony about Shula's death is that it occurred on the same day Ernie Harwell died, but 10 years earlier. So everybody knows where I stand with Ernie Harwell by now. If you don't, then listen to some last broadcast. All right, we'll go through it a little bit more. You got Mike McCormick, Pepper Rogers, Fred Dean, and just most recently, Kevin Green. All right, George, lead off with each and every one of those four. Then I know
Again,
we're talking about
these
Green.
these are guys that, yeah, they had great careers. Freddie Dean out in the Los Angeles area. Kevin Green, a terrific career. Pepper Rogers, what a great coach he was. Mike McCormick, a very successful coach. I mean, the Eagles for a long, long time. And again, these guys that you mentioned are just, some of them are different age spectrums, a little bit older, but Kevin Green just died the other day, and he's a Hall of Famer, man. I mean, he was a great defender, Kevin Green. I remember seeing him play all those years for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and big guy with that big blonde flowing locks he had. And again, dying way, way too early. He was born in 62. So
like 58 when he died, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, he's younger than I am, for crying out loud. But, these guys, a lot of them you mentioned are great players and great coaches.
Well, when you talk about Jim Kick and now Kevin Green, don't be surprised if there was so much head trauma that probably led to a lot of their situations where they passed away earlier. A lot of times when you deal with trauma, NFL players may not get past 60, 65 years of age. And
that's a good point, Scott. A very good point. A lot of these young guys that are dying, I'm sure it can be attributed to that. I'm not sure, but I mean, a lot of it could be.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of NFL guys, and when you start to die a little bit before your time, you know what they've had to put themselves through in a league ultra physical is what you're talking about. Then their lifespan tends to go down a little bit further. We could go over a bunch of names, but I won't. But these guys could be very big classic examples. I mean, well, think of Junior Seau, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a guy here who killed themselves because of all this, but we're not going to get into a lengthy. But I think each and every one of those. I mean, Kevin Green's my age, 1962. So, all right, let's continue on to more football because there's a lot of them, but it's good. I mean, we have a great list. Sid Hartman worked for the Minneapolis Star Tribune, made it to 100 years of age. I met Sid Hartman over at the Pontiac Silverdome when he was, again, we had the luxury of seeing the Minnesota Vikings, and I got to meet a lot of these out-of-town writers. So,
yeah, good guy. Yeah, I'm sure Jerry Green probably knows him very well. Jerry Green's in his 90s now for the Detroit News. He's covered every Super Bowl. And Sid Hartman certainly was a great, great writer, like you said, Scott.
Yeah. So you got Paul Hornung, another Green Bay Packer, Notre Dame guy.
Paul Hornung, he's a buddy, with Alex Karras, and they got involved in a little bit of that gambling thing. Pete Rozelle you talk about a hard-nosed commissioner, Rick Curti. Pete Rozelle was just like David Stern, and he wouldn't put up with any crap. Now, finally, Alex Karras was supposed to be inducted in Canton this summer, but of course it's been postponed due to COVID. But Alex Karras finally gets his chance at the Hall of Fame. He was involved in that scandal for Paul Hornung. I could never figure that out, though, guys. They didn't hold it against Paul Hornung his whole career like they held it against Alex Karras. God rest his soul. But Paul Hornung now is gone. But, he's a Hall of Famer. But like you said, he played for those great Vince Lombardi teams at the Packer land.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. And I never saw Alex Karras play, but I do remember him when he became an actor and he was on Webster. And that's what I remember him as. And I remember my dad said, yeah, he was like a football player, Alex Karras. And it was always like, really? He's an actor now? Wow, that's amazing. But
yeah.
And Paul Hornung, a great legendary quarterback. And it's just, yeah, you're right. It's amazing that, Paul Hornung, you don't talk about that. You don't hear about that a lot. But yeah, with Alex Karras, that's like what he was known for was how he gambled and You
Yeah.
know, it's just it's funny how it just hurts other people's careers, and yet someone else it doesn't.
Yeah.
Let me give you my favorite Alex Karras story. I'm in grade school in Southfield, Michigan, and I get my football cards confiscated by my third grade teacher. I'll never forget. Her name was Miss Galicki. And I get them all back, and the one that she keeps is Alex Karras. Go figure.
Yeah.
Well, missing one here. No, you got them all back. I'm thinking, yeah, all right, lady. Took Alex Karras, the best one of the group. So anyway,
Oh my God.
all right, now the guy that wore number 13 before Dan Marino has something in common with me. The name Scott, but his is on the back end called Jake Scott. But he was
Miami Dolphins, but a great player for the Dolphins. Yep, absolutely. Jake Scott. Was he a safety or a corner?
he was a defender. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly for sure.
Yeah. Jake Scott, of course, played on that championship team, but great player. Yeah.
Intricate part of that team. All right, is Rick, any thoughts about Jake Scott?
I'm not really familiar with him. Unfortunately, I do remember Kevin Green though. I remember when he was with the Panthers.
Right.
And I think he's like the third in all time in sacks. And I think he was the oldest player to win the Defensive Player of the Year, and he was also a fine wrestler. I remember him in WCW. We wrestled there, and but I remember him a lot with the Steelers, and of course with the Panthers. So I was blown away that he passed away so young. So it's just sad, you know. It's unfortunate.
All right, let's go through this list a little bit more. We go to Jim Hannafin, Ray Perkins, Sam Weish.
Yeah, coaches again, all of them. I think Hannafin was with the Cardinals. Perkins had some good years. Was it the Giants, I believe?
Yeah, Giants on the
Sam
Tampa Bay.
Weish
Alabama.
was Weish with Cleveland or Cincinnati or both?
I believe
Cincinnati.
Yeah. And then he
Yeah.
went on to broadcaster too. I know Sam Weish did. But again, we're losing these coaches just like we talked about earlier with college basketball and the NBA. A lot of these coaches now we're losing, not only the players, but now we're losing a lot of the coaches. We're getting old, guys. Older. We're getting
It's sad. It's
Yeah.
sad. I'm depressed. I remember Sam Weiss very well with the Bengals, and
Yeah.
they came so close of winning that Super Bowl. And of course Joe Montana, the magician quarterback. The guy just knew how to win it, and it looked like oh, here's the Bengals. And I remember Ickey Woods and all that, and he was a great coach, and they came so close to winning that Super Bowl, and unfortunately 49ers came back. But I remember Sam Weiss, very, very good head coach for the Bengals.
Yeah, Sam Weish was never shy about taking shots at Cleveland, that's for sure. Ray Perkins ended up coaching for Alabama, and the first thing he did was, I think it took a tower down that Bear Bryant used to use, and he tried to make his own identity there. But Ray Perkins, obviously known for what he did with the Giants, and then he ended up succeeding Bear Bryant in Alabama. Let's keep this thing going a little bit. George Perlis, obviously a big, intricate part of Michigan State, George.
Well, yeah, but before that, don't forget he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So
Right.
Chuck Noll and George Perlis was a great coach. He took the Michigan State Spartans to the Rose Bowl. He had some great talent playing for him. Just a great man, a great ambassador for Michigan State University. After his coaching career, in fact, he became a member of the Board of Trustees for Michigan State. And George Perlis was known what a defensive whiz he was with the Steelers before taking over the job there. And of course, Scott, you and I know that he and Ken Hoffman, they're the ones that the glue that held together that college bowl, that postseason bowl game in Detroit, which started out as a Cherry Bowl, and then it became the Motor City Bowl and the Quick Lane Bowl. Now it's called. For a while, it was the Little Caesars Bowl, but George and Ken Hoffman, of course, ran that bowl game before the Detroit Lions took it over.
Yeah, I remember meeting George Perlis when Michigan State took on USC at the Sun Bowl in El Paso and spent time with him. Really a nice guy for sure. And Ken Hoffman, obviously, has been a big help too.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue on. Woody Weidenhofer, John Tierlink. I know that John Tierlink was a pass rusher galore in terms of when it came to, emphasizing. So I want you to give everybody an overview of those guys, George.
Well, again, these were assistant coaches. I know they had to, some time with the Detroit Lions, Woody Woodenhofer, John Turling, Joe Bugles, another one. These guys were very good at their job, which was being an assistant coach or in a coordinator position. I thought that they both, all three of them, did very, very well at their stops here in Detroit, especially. Rick, I don't know if you have any recollections on any of these guys, but as you notice, we're losing a lot of our. Now we're starting to lose a lot of the assistant coaches too in the NFL.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, they're probably a little before my time. I'm not really familiar with them, but it's just amazing how many coaches, assistant coaches that have passed away this year. It's just like I said, this 2020 feels like 5 years in a one. It's just I just can't even remember so many sports people dying, or even like the actors. There's a whole list of actors that have died as well that are just like
Yeah.
unbelievable. But I mean, I remember with Don Shula, it's like, God, it feels like he died a long time ago, but it's been such a long year. It feels like it, but he did die this year. So it's just, like I said, it's just sad to see all these coaches and players passing away.
Yeah, Joe Bugle went on to coach the Arizona Cardinals and was an intricate part of building that offensive line with the Washington football team, as they're now called, with the
I
Hawks.
remember him.
Yeah,
I remember when he went to the Raiders.
Yeah,
he was also the coach for the Raiders as well. So yeah, I remember, but he was the coach for the Cardinals for a very, very long time.
All right, as we continue through the list, got Frank Maloney, Jim Lambright. George, we're going to let you just give an overview of these guys, and I'll have you start to give an overview as to why you thought they belong on this list.
Well, Frank Maloney was a great coach with the Syracuse, the Orange. Frank Maloney had a great career, Hall of Fame career coaching them. He only got to one bowl game, believe it or not, which is kind of ironic. But Frank Maloney was a really great coach for Syracuse, like I said, for so many years. Lambright, University of Washington. He guided the University of Washington to some great games and great bowl games. He was only 1-3 in the bowls, but a lot of players looked up to him. The University of Washington players and colleagues were really in a state of shock, and they really had a lot of tributes to him. Again, Jim Lambright from the University of Washington.
I got Tommy Vaughn, Bill Yeoman.
Well, Tommy Vaughn, of course, one of your frequent guests on your show is Mel Farr Jr. And of course, Mel Farr Sr. was very good friends with Tommy Vaughn. And in fact, Scott, on the program that we had Mel talking, he remembered that, his dad really was close friends with Tommy Vaughn, a good defensive back for the Detroit Lions in the early 60s, played with Mel Farr, Joe Schmidt, guys like that. Dick Duran was on that team. I don't know if Vaughn played with Dick Night Train Lane, possibly, but again, the Lions had a great defense and a great secondary as well. Tommy Vaughn was part of that, and like I said, especially here in Detroit, we're going to miss him very, very much. Bill Yeoman, a great coach in college, just tremendous coach. I remember that.
I believe he was with the Houston Cougars, if I remember correctly.
Yes, you're right, Scott.
Okay, another local guy in Metro Detroit we can talk about, Herb Orvis.
Herb Orvis, a big defender. Herb Orvis was a big guy. He was tremendous talent. Well, a very high draft choice by the Lions too, and he was, again, taken too early in his life. Herb Orvis played for the Lions for a number of years, and I liked him. I mean, he was part of that offensive line, that big offensive line they had, and Greg Landry was under center as the quarterback for a long time with Herb Orvis leading the way. And I'm going to miss him too. Another guy named Herb Adderley is on our list, Scott and Rick. And Herb Adderley, fantastic career, member of the College Football Hall of Fame, great defender, again, Michigan State University, one of the all-time greats, Spartans. George Blaha, their play-by-play announcer, will let you know that Herb Adderley was just a terrific football player for the Spartans.
Yeah, I remember Herb Orvis quite well. That's for sure, and fine player for sure. All right, let's move along here. Ken Riley, and then Michael McCaskey. I believe Michael McCaskey's with the Bears, isn't he?
That's true. Yeah. In fact, his wife still runs the team, I believe. Mrs. McCaskey. Ken Riley was a defensive back. He had a good career, very good career playing, and it was a cornerback. And Again, he left us too early. He played in the 60s, I think the 60s and the 70s for the Cincinnati Bengals for the most part of his career. Ken Riley was a good player. McCaskill, of course, I mean, you talk about filling big shoes of George Halas, but, McCaskill and his family took over the Bears, and, they had some great careers. Obviously, Mike Ditka is their coach, and, Dick Butkus is one of their players, and the McCaskies, had some good years, but obviously they've had a lot of lean years lately too, as well, with his widow running the team now.
Yeah. So, all right. So we go on from Michael McCaskey. You got Mike Curtis. And I think one that I'm really surprised at as I look at this is Tavares Jackson. All right. So,
yeah, Jackson was the quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Very young. I'm not sure what he died from, but we lost him this year. Mike Curtis was a great ball player. I remember in college and in high school. I'm sorry, college. Yeah, high school too, I'm sure. But with the Baltimore Colts mostly, that I remember Mike Curtis. I think he played for Washington too, in Seattle as well. And, Mike Curtis had, I believe, 14 years in the NFL. But yeah, Tavares Jackson, I mean, he wasn't that old.
He was like in his 30s. He died in a car accident. And he was like in his 30s. And I remember he was the quarterback with Seattle. And that was another shocking death. I remember him. I do remember him, and just gone way too soon. But I think, he was like in his mid 30s when he passed away. He was very, very young.
All right, we'll go through the rest of this list that we have. You go from Tavares Jackson, you got Pete Retzloff, Bobby Mitchell. Go ahead, George.
Well, Pete Retzloff, I mean, we talk about Pete Maravich being called Pistol Pete, but the original Pistol Pete, believe it or not, was Pete Retzloff. He died in April, and he was a great Notre Dame guy. And with the Eagles, he had a great career with the Philadelphia Eagles. Pete Retzloff, the Eagles really mourned the loss of him when he's a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Fame tight end. 1960 NFL champion, Pete Retzloff. Bobby Mitchell. Yeah, I mean, he had a so-so career. I mean, he bounced around to a few teams, but I put him on the list because a lot of people remember him when he played in the league. He again, and you talk about another guy that broke the color barrier, and was in African American descent, halfback for the Cleveland Browns for a long time. Bobby Mitchell, rest in peace.
Mike Stratton, Benny Malone.
Mike Stratton and Benny Malone. Yeah, I know that Benny Malone was, some of these guys, I put them on the list, but I got to really, think hard. But again, Benny Malone was a guy in the NFL, played for the Dolphins. He was drafted in 1974 in the second round by the Dolphins, and he played for them for a number of years. He played for Don Shula down in Miami. And Benny Malone, again, he was only, 68 when he died. I mean, God help him. I mean, like you said, Scott, another football player dying at a younger age, 68. He had a decent rushing career in the NFL. The other gentleman I'm not too familiar with. I know I put him on my list, but I'd have to look him up. I'm not familiar with him.
We'll move along here. Chris Dolman, I remember him all too well, Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
Fred Akers, who I believe coached at the University of Texas. So those are two guys that I'm glad are on this list. Go ahead, George. Give an overview of these guys.
Well, again, Akers was another guy, just like we talked about earlier. Some of these guys had fantastic careers, in coaching. In Dolman, of course, was a great NFL player. Fred Akers, again, Texas boy, he had a lot of good years there.
Okay. All right, let's talk about golf. I think we only have 5 on this list, so we should whip through this one pretty well. Bobby Jones, so they don't get a whole lot bigger than him.
No, they sure don't. Bobby Jones, gosh, his name is synonymous with great golfers of and architects of golf courses as well after he retired as a player. But Bobby Jones was a great one.
And 4 other names worth talking about: Doug Sanders, Pete Dye, Pettis Alice, and Mickey Wright. George, why don't you just go?
Yeah, sorry for the misprint. I'm sorry for the misprint, Scott. That's Peter Alice. Peter Alice was one of the great commentators. Gosh, I remember him working with Jim McKay and Henry Longhurst. And Peter Alice on ABC did a terrific job. Of course, Dave Marr, the late Dave Marr, late Jim McKay, ABC with Bill Fleming. And don't forget our friend Dave Dials and Chris Schenkel. They had a great golf team. I remember announcing team at Peter Alice. They borrowed from the BBC, and he became a great color commentator for golf. Doug Sanders, very colorful player. Doug Sanders played. I mean, he was a great guy. He golfed with guys like Trevino and Nicholas and Gary Player. Pete Dye, what a great architect. So many golf courses Pete Dye designed. And of course, Mickey Wright, what a great woman. She was a great ambassador, one of the best women golfers of all time, Mickey Wright. So we only lost, like you said, Scott and Rick, about 5 golfers, big names, I mean, but of course they were big in their sport.
All right, on the motorsports, let's talk about John Andretti. There's a guy, in my opinion, who epitomizes what a driver is. He definitely is. John Andretti would go ahead and race in the Indianapolis 500 as well as the Coca-Cola 600. He'd race on anything that he can. And I know during his funeral that he was able to, they went ahead and took his limo and he drove around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So John Andretti, to me, was just tremendous.
And Rick, you know this as well as Scott. What a great name. Of course, the Andrettis have been involved in racing for so long. And John kind of, under the radar a little bit, not as flashy, obviously, as Mario and John Andretti, though, like you said, Scott, boy, that guy, he just got his fingernails dirty. He wasn't afraid to get involved in all kinds of auto racing. Right, Rick?
Yep, definitely. I mean, the Andrettis are like the synonymous, like the Mannings of football, just a legendary family. I remember Mario Andretti, and I remember John Andretti. And like I said, I wasn't the biggest NASCAR fan, but I mean, the Andrettis are just super popular, super famous, and another legend passed away.
3 more drivers: Sterling Moss, Maurice Petty, Bob Lazier.
Yeah, Bob Lazier, of course, was Rookie of the Year at the Indy 500, Scott and Rick. And Maurice Petty, again, coming from that famous Kyle Petty family, Richard Petty's brother, Maurice, and Sterling Moss, Formula One driver. And what a tremendous career he had. Not as good as Niki Lauda, but Sterling Moss had a great career as an F1 driver and owner. And those are some pretty big names in motorsports we lost this year. Not a long list, but important guys.
Now, I know a sport that Rick likes to talk about. I'm glad we're going to get around to it. Boxing: Dwight Davison, Hedgeman Lewis, Leo Sugar, Carmen Williamson, and Roger Mayweather.
Yep, Roger Mayweather, his son Floyd Mayweather. And just legends. And like I said, just so many we've lost this year from sports. So it's just and
a couple of those, Rick and Scott, were Detroit guys. Okay, but I mentioned them because, as you guys know, Kronk Boxing with the late Emmanuel Stewart, it was just a tremendous program. Dwight Davison came out of that. Hedgeman Lewis came out of that. And, it's sad when I see these young guys go because, and again, Roger Mayweather, too, was also from Michigan. Of course, Floyd's, like you said, his brother. And it's just, it's tough. But just like in football, we lose a lot of boxers at early ages because of those closed head and open, those injuries. And of course, the sad case of Muhammad Ali and what he had to go through painfully all those years with, his disease.
All right. And last but not least, you had some others. So I'll go ahead and mention them and I'll comment on them.
Sure.
All right. Here we go. Ready? Kurt Thomas, gymnast. Rick Curti.
What was it again? I'm sorry.
Kurt Thomas, the gymnast.
I'm not really familiar with him.
United States male gymnast. Oh, he was great. He was in a couple of the Olympics and competed at a very high level. I was shocked. Beautiful wife, beautiful family. Kurt Thomas couldn't have been more than 50. I mean, it's just, he had some sort of disease, I guess, but I don't know what it was, but I was shocked.
All right, let's go on to Diego Maradona, soccer, a worldwide icon. All right, Rick, you're nodding your head. Go for it.
Yeah, legendary soccer or football player, Argentina, won World Cups, regarded as one of the greatest soccer players that ever lived, great scorer. Unfortunately, a lot of people remember him synonymous with a lot of issues with drugs. But nonetheless, he was a great soccer player. He's a legend.
Yes.
He's just a total legend. And, it's just when I heard that he passed away, I was just, like I said, someone in my childhood. I was a little bit before my time, but I do remember him very well. And he's just a legendary soccer player, beloved.
Yeah, no question that the soccer community throughout Europe and Argentina and throughout the world will definitely miss Diego Maradona. All right, let's stay on to soccer. Peter Whittingham.
Yeah, he played for the Elite League and, in England, Whittingham. He was both a player and a manager, and he was very, very well known in England and the Premier League. That you see teams like Manchester United and Liverpool and Nottingham and teams like that. So yeah, Whittingham. Rayford Johnson, another one we lost this year. Scott, of course, 1960 Olympic gold medalist. Rayford Johnson from Southern California. He was terrific. Just a great, became a film actor. The decathlon, Rayford Johnson was just an unbelievable athlete for the United States in the Olympics.
Yeah, one that you put on this list, which is interesting, my sister-in-law, Maria, and my brother-in-law, Todd, mentioned her Jeannie Morris, sports broadcaster. I believe she was the first woman that covered a Super Bowl in, 1975?
Yeah, Jeannie Morris, of course, from Chicago area, correct. And she was a terrific reporter long before it became popular to have females, covering especially the NFL and sideline reporting. And of course, Scott, another one we lost this year, as you and Rick know, Phyllis George. Oh my gosh, remember that? Brent Musburger, Phyllis George,
Yep.
Jimmy the Greek Snyder, and Irv Cross. Oh my gosh. To me, that was Sunday football pregame for me.
Yeah,
That TBS team.
Wasn't Johnny Morris related to Jeannie Morris? I don't know if there was a connection there or not.
You're right, Scott. Good point there. Yes, they were married to each other. That's right. Johnny Morris used to do a lot of the Bears games for CBS, and he would get a lot of sometimes Lions games too, because his location, he was housed in Chicago. But yeah, that was Jeannie's husband. I don't know if they're still married. That I don't know.
No, all right. I just saw the Chicago connection.
And Phyllis George, a former Miss America, and tapped by CBS, in a brilliant move when they put that, like I said, that team together for the NFL today with Musburger, Jimmy the Greek, Irv Cross, and Phyllis.
Yeah, Phyllis went on to be married to the governor, I believe. Is it John?
Yes, John Y. Brown, correct.
So if I remember right. All right, we'll go a few more here, then we'll wrap up the broadcast. All right, Jamie Samuelson. Rick, you don't know him. He's a longtime radio sports talk show in Detroit. We'll just mention of Jamie, not getting any specifics on him. Yeah. Martin Capillion, longtime writer who covered the Detroit Red Wings, as well as other sports, one of the more versatile writers in the Metro Detroit area. Ed Farmer, broadcaster, you talked about him.
Ed Farmer, yeah, had a great career. White Sox announcer, and sadly he was taken before his time too, as well. Eddie Farmer, and he pitched for the Tigers at one time too.
I remember that. Okay, go from Ed Farmer to Roger Kahn, sports writer and author.
Oh, Roger Kahn, yeah, he was an award-winning author, and Roger was a great writer. He was a terrific writer, and I think that Roger was the guy that really put baseball on the map with that book called The Boys of Summer.
Right.
And just terrific writer and author of that book.
Okay, you talk about Ashley Cooper, male tennis.
Ashley Cooper was a very good tennis player, and some people think Ashley was a girl. No, no, no. He was a men's tennis player,
Right.
and he went to many Grand Slam tournaments, and he was from Australia.
And you alluded to Phyllis George, and one I know you're not familiar with, Rick, but we grew up in Detroit. Larry Adderley. This one kind of shocked me a little bit. Did a lot of Detroit Red Wing stuff and was a very versatile broadcaster. I believe he appeared
Yeah.
in the news too, if I remember
He
right.
sure did, Scott. Scott, he succeeded a legend in Channel 7, as you know, with Dave Dials when Dave Dials left, and they promoted Larry Adderley to sports director, and Al Ackerman eventually came over from Channel 4 to Channel 7 as well. But Larry Adderley did a lot for golf, especially the state of Michigan. Larry loved golf, and he became the number one radio reporter on all the Michigan PGA and USGA events. And like you said, Scott, he was quite a broadcaster in his time in Detroit, did the Red Wings as well.
And one I want to mention here locally in Southern Florida, his name is Bernie Rosen. He was a sports director, died at the age of 93 in the South Florida area. I had a good fortune of meeting Bernie Rosen at some Miami Dolphins games. So, he gets pretty good, interesting stories to share. He's been around it. And actually, Bernie Rosen worked with Mark Wilson.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Mark Wilson that Rick Curti knows all too well.
Yeah.
We did a broadcast with Rick and I and Mark, and that's, that's where Bernie Rosen, that was his boss, and that's what helped get Mark going until he subsequently moved to Detroit.
Wow.
I know for a lot of you folks that are probably wondering how am I going to keep track of those names. Well, for one, get a notepad and a pencil and paper. Otherwise, you can watch his broadcast a lot. We know you'll be able to, if you find 5 or 10, 15 people out of this group, you've done really well. We've hit on a lot of them, but that's just the story of 2020. It's amazing how many people, as Rick has alluded to, that we've really lost 1 year. And this one just seems to be, the magnitude of the losses just seem outrageous. The Hall of Famers, the coaches and whatnot. So to me, that's 2020 in a nutshell. All I can say for 2020 is good riddance.
I agree. I
can't wait. Ready for 2021.
That's right.
So all right, George, why don't you let everybody, that concludes this edition of the Sports Feed. Before we get off the air, though, George, why don't you let everybody go ahead and promote the book that you wrote about?
Yeah, I got Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the air, featuring the likes of Ernie Harwell, Ray Lane, Van Patrick, Frank Beckman, Bud Lynch, and Bruce Martin, and Bob Reynolds, and Van Patrick did the Lions games, and Scott is featured in the book too, and it's a great little book to have. It's Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air by Arcadia Press, and there's a link for you to purchase that on my profile page at the South Florida Tribune. You can also reach me at DSBA2 on Twitter, and also I'm on Facebook, George Eichorn on Facebook. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Rick, go ahead.
You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. My email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB, and I'm also on Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats, also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball, and you can find me on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti.
All right. As for us, well, you want to follow us, South Florida Tribune, and give you lots of ways to do it. Okay, you go to Twitter at Tribune South. That's at Tribune South. On Facebook and Instagram, you can like us and follow us there, South Florida Tribune. Yes, you definitely got that right. If you want to see the visual version of the broadcast, subscribe for nothing over at the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, and then you'll get all the broadcasts that we have. You can, our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find all of our broadcasts there, all kinds of content from our media distribution partners, as well as the columnists. Motor City Monitor's on there as well, but especially the broadcasts are definitely on there. So we definitely have news, national news on there. It's a full-fledged site that my wife Candy does a wonderful job maintaining day in and day out. I've never seen a person continue to maintain a website as well as she does. So you've got that, and of course you can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You've got the website, If you want to go ahead and hear the audio version of this broadcast, you can do so at iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, or wherever you get your podcast. So, Rick does a wonderful job with our social media department. I've enjoyed having you guys as co-hosts. I can see a lot of us doing some really good things next year. Again, we try to do everything that we can to put together this best possible shows. And, I can't thank you guys enough for what you guys do on your time so that we can try to keep it real for everybody. I know, obviously, I'd like to get more enthusiastic, but the subject matter dictated the way we're going to approach tonight, knowing that this is our final show of 2020. We look forward to having a lot more fresh ideas going into 2021. So, Rick, once again, thank you for what you do with our social media department. We're forever grateful. So,
No problem.
Anything else you guys want to add?
It's just been, I've enjoyed 2020 doing this show. It's been like I said, a horrific year, but what's been great is doing the show with you, Scott, and meeting great people. And I just thank you for having me on your program, and ready for 2021.
We're glad to have you, George.
I just want to wish everybody a very, very happy Kwanzaa and happy New Year of 2021. It's going to be some great football action. I can't wait to Notre Dame and Alabama, especially. I want to see that game on New Year's Eve. And the other game, well, Clemson's going to walk all over them. So watch your football on New Year's Day and New Year's Eve, and enjoy the holiday at home. Be safe. Be safe. And wear your mask.
The next time I do this broadcast, it won't be at the age of 57. I can promise you that. So
happy birthday to Scott Morganroth, the lead anchor and lead host of the Sports Exchange. Happy birthday, Scott.
A show we started out many years ago. George continues on. And I
Yes.
great guy there. So, all right, Rick, go ahead and give the COVID message. Nobody does it better than you.
Well, like I said, 2020 has been a long year, but it's going to get longer if people don't pay attention. You guys need to wear a mask, please. Social distance, enough of these stupid parties and meeting your friends at bars and concerts. And, I know it sucks to stay at home, but what also sucks is to die. You don't want to die from this, Unfortunately, someone in my family, my mom in New Mexico, someone in her family actually passed away from COVID. And it's awful. It's not a hoax. It's not the flu. It's not something that's going to disappear. We just need to be smart about this. Wear a mask, protect other people. Don't be selfish, and
well,
okay, Scott, I think we lost Rick, but thanks again for a great show, Scott.
All right, no problem, George. Thank you very much as well. And Mom, I love you very much. I'll miss you tomorrow, but you know what? You're definitely heavily in my mind and in my heart. So great job, George, and we'll talk soon. God bless, George. Happy New Year.
You too. Happy New Year, everybody.